The Alien and Predator franchises officially share a universe. This crossover began in Dark Horse Comics around 1989 with an Aliens vs. Predator story in Dark Horse Presents that led to a full limited series depicting the Yautja species hunting xenomorphs as the ultimate prey. The comic series became wildly successful, spawning sequels, video games, and eventually 2 feature films. Director Paul W.S. Anderson's Alien vs. Predator arrived in 2004, followed by Aliens vs. Predator Requiem in 2007. The films established that predators have been visiting Earth for thousands of years, using xenomorphs as part of their hunting rituals. An ancient pyramid beneath Antarctica contains xenomorph eggs, and the predators return every century to hunt them as a rite of passage. The crossover actually began on screen earlier than most fans realize. In Predator 2 from 1990, Detective Mike Harrigan boards a Predator spaceship and discovers a trophy room containing a xenomorph skull mounted on the wall. Special effects supervisor Stan Winston added it as a joke, but that single prop validated years of comic book storytelling and generated a multimedia franchise worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The films attempted to explain how both species could exist in the same timeline, with Prometheus later adding engineers as the creators of xenomorphs. The crossover proved controversial among purists who preferred keeping the franchises separate, but it demonstrated that audiences would embrace official connections between established science fiction properties, paving the way for shared universe thinking in Hollywood. Prometheus and Covenant. Ridley Scott's Prometheus from 2012 officially connects to the Alien franchise as a prequel. The film follows the crew of the spaceship Prometheus as they investigate the origins of humanity, discovering a species called engineers who appear to have created humanity and whose bioweapons eventually lead to the xenomorphs. The black pathogen they find is a bioweapon that mutates organic life, creating various horrific creatures. The film ends with Elizabeth Shaw and the android David leaving the planet to find the engineer homeworld. Alien Covenant from 2017 continues this story more than a decade later, revealing David has been experimenting with the black pathogen to create the perfect organism. He systematically wipes out the engineer civilization and uses human colonists as test subjects. The film shows David creating early versions of the xenomorph through genetic manipulation and forced evolution. By the end, David has a ship full of colonists in hypersleep, positioning himself to continue his experiments. The prequels explain the space jockey from the original Alien as an engineer, wearing a biomechanical suit that fused with his body. They also hint that a similar derelict crashed long before the Nostromo discovered. LV-426, though the exact history of that ship remains ambiguous. Scott's prequels transformed the xenomorphs from unknown alien horrors into deliberately engineered bioweapons, which divided fans who preferred the mystery. The films connect across millennia, establishing that humanity's creation and potential destruction share the same source. Freddy vs. Jason from 2003 crosses horror franchises through dream manipulation technology. New Line Cinema owned both the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th franchises, making the crossover legally possible after years of development. The film's premise involves Freddy Krueger, weakened because the Elm Street parents have successfully made their children forget him, manipulating Jason Voorhees into killing teenagers to reignite fear of Freddy. What makes this science fiction, rather than pure horror, is the film's treatment of dream manipulation as a technological and psychological phenomenon. Freddy operates through shared consciousness and collective memory, essentially hacking human psychology. The film features Hypnosil, a drug that suppresses dreams and prevents Freddy from accessing victims, treating dream invasion as a medical condition that can be pharmaceutically managed. Jason enters the dream world in the climax, creating a space where an unkillable physical force confronts a dream demon on his own turf. Director Ronnie Yu staged elaborate dream sequences where reality and nightmare blur, with characters using experimental techniques to pull Freddy out of the dream world into physical reality. The crossover explores what happens when two different types of monsters with incompatible rule sets collide. Jason is effectively unkillable and doesn't really dream on his own, making him simultaneously Freddy's perfect weapon and his ultimate weakness. The film ends ambiguously, with Jason emerging from the lake holding Freddy's severed head, which winks at the camera, suggesting neither monster was truly defeated. Soldier and Blade Runner. Kurt Russell's Soldier from 1998 is often treated as a sidequel to Blade Runner. Screenwriter David Webb Peoples wrote both films, and he and director Paul W.S. Anderson have said they envisioned them existing in the same timeline, even though that connection has never been made official canon. Director Paul W.S. Anderson included deliberate connections, most notably crashed spinner vehicles from Blade Runner, visible in a junkyard scene on the trash planet Arcadia 234. The spinners appear as salvage, suggesting Sergeant Todd's world exists decades after Rick Deckard's. Russell plays Todd, a soldier engineered and trained from birth to be the perfect warrior, similar to how replicants in Blade Runner are engineered for specific purposes. Both films explore what it means to be human when humanity can be manufactured and programmed. The connection makes thematic sense. Both depict corporate-controlled dystopias where human life has become commodified and disposable. People's structured Soldier as a spiritual successor, examining similar questions about identity, obsolescence, and the soul's existence in manufactured beings. The film shows Todd, conditioned to obey without question, learning emotion and choice after being discarded on a waste planet. In the Battle of Tannhauser Gate, mentioned in Roy Batty's famous dying speech in Blade Runner, the spinners suggest these soldiers possibly fought alongside or against replicants in that conflict. Anderson and Peoples never made the connection explicit in dialogue, instead using production design and visual references to reward attentive viewers. The shared universe deepens both films, suggesting a timeline where genetic engineering created both replicants and super soldiers, with corporations treating both as property rather than people. RoboCop and Terminator. Fan theories connect RoboCop and Terminator through their dystopian corporate futures. Both franchises feature megacorporations developing artificial intelligence and cybernetic technology that ultimately threatens humanity. In RoboCop, Omni Consumer Products controls Detroit and creates cyborg law enforcement, while in Terminator, Cyberdyne Systems develops Skynet, the AI that launches nuclear war. The theory suggests OCP and Cyberdyne exist in the same timeline, possibly as rival corporations or divisions of the same parent company. Both companies prioritize profit over human safety, rushing experimental technology into production despite catastrophic risks. OCP's ED-209 enforcement droid and Cyberdyne's T-800 Terminator share design philosophies, prioritizing function over human appearance. The theory points to similar timelines. Both films depict 1980s corporations developing technology that becomes operational in the near future, with catastrophic results by the 2020s or 2030s. Detroit's urban decay in RoboCop mirrors the war-torn cities in Terminator, suggesting parallel collapse of social infrastructure. Dark Horse Comics published RoboCop vs. the Terminator in 1992, depicting Skynet discovering and utilizing RoboCop's technology to create advanced infiltration units, making the crossover official in comic continuity. The comic reveals RoboCop's human brain becomes the template for Skynet's neural net processors, connecting Alex Murphy's tragedy directly to humanity's extinction. While the films never officially shared continuity, Both explore identical themes about technology dehumanizing society, corporations valuing property over people, and the question of whether consciousness can exist in machines. Quick note, if you're into this, I create videos like this constantly. A subscription would mean a lot. Cloverfield Universe. The Cloverfield franchise creates an anthology universe where separate stories connect through the Tagruato Corporation. J.J. Abrams produced Cloverfield in 2008, a found-footage monster film set in New York City. 10 Cloverfield Lane followed in 2016, a psychological thriller about a woman trapped in a bunker during an alien invasion. The Cloverfield Paradox arrived in 2018, a space station horror film depicting scientists accidentally opening portals to parallel dimensions. The films don't share characters or direct plot continuity, but they connect through corporate conspiracy and experimental technology. Tagruato Corporation weaves through the franchise's viral marketing and background lore, with references and tie-ins that connect the films outside the main on-screen story. In Cloverfield, Tagruato operates a deep-sea drilling station that awakens the monster. In 10 Cloverfield Lane, a satellite crash tied to Tagruato appears in the extended ARG backstory, while the film itself simply shows an alien invasion from the perspective of characters trapped in a bunker. In Paradox, the space station's particle accelerator experiment tears reality, unleashing monsters across multiple dimensions. The franchise treats Cloverfield as a universe rather than a single story, similar to The Twilight Zone, where different incidents stem from the same source. Abrams confirmed future Cloverfield films would continue this approach, telling standalone stories connected by theme and corporate conspiracy rather than direct sequels. The Slusho beverage, owned by Tagruato, appears in all 3 films and several other Abrams projects, creating a wider universe where this fictional corporation operates across multiple properties. The ambiguity about how the films connect creates endless fan theories about whether they're parallel timelines, sequential events, or separate universes bleeding together. The Thing continuity. The 2011 prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing creates direct continuity with the 1982 classic. Matthijs van Heijningen Jr. directed the prequel, which depicts the Norwegian Antarctic Research Station's discovery and destruction by the alien organism. The film meticulously recreates details from Carpenter's opening sequence, where Americans investigate the destroyed Norwegian base. Every burned body, every frozen corpse, every damaged room shown in Carpenter's film receives an explanation in the prequel. The filmmakers studied Carpenter's movie frame by frame, ensuring perfect continuity, down to the positioning of specific objects and the exact state of destruction. The prequel's final shot shows the Norwegian helicopter pursuing the dog thing across the ice, leading directly into Carpenter's opening scene. Kate Lloyd, the prequel's protagonist, disappears into the Antarctic, pursuing a surviving thing, leaving her fate unresolved and maintaining mystery. The production used practical effects to honor Carpenter's aesthetic, though studio interference forced the addition of digital effects that many fans felt betrayed the practical creature design. Van Heiningen's film reveals how the alien spacecraft became buried in ice for thousands of years, and why the Norwegians were so desperate to destroy the creature. The prequel shows the thing's ability to perfectly imitate victims, creating paranoia and distrust that destroys the Norwegian team exactly as it later destroys the Americans. The film serves as both prequel and companion piece, enhancing Carpenter's classic by explaining mysteries while respecting the original's ambiguity about the thing's ultimate origins and whether anyone survives. Star Trek crossovers. Star Trek has crossed over with multiple franchises through various media. The most significant crossover came in 1996 with a Marvel Star Trek X-Men comic series, where the Enterprise crew encounters mutants from Marvel's universe, followed by Star Trek The Next Generation, X-Men Second Contact, later in the decade. The crossover remained a non-canonical licensed story for the TV and film continuity, though fans still treat it as a major meeting of two sci-fi icons. Doctor Who crossed with Star Trek in IDW Comics' Assimilation Squared from 2012, depicting the 11th Doctor and his companions materializing on the Enterprise D. The comic shows Cybermen allying with the Borg, creating a threat requiring both crews to cooperate. While not television canonical, these comics are officially licensed crossovers that sit outside the main on-screen continuity for both franchises. The Star Trek and Green Lantern crossover from 2015 depicts a universe where the emotional spectrum powers from Green Lantern affect Star Trek characters, with Kirk wielding a Green Lantern ring. These crossovers work because Star Trek established infinite parallel universes through the Mirror Universe episodes, creating justification for any crossover as occurring in alternate timelines. The franchise's time travel mechanics allow nearly any scenario, explaining how different fictional universes could briefly overlap. J.J. Abrams' reboot films included Easter eggs from other franchises, with R2-D2 appearing in Star Trek from 2009 for a single frame in space debris. The films walk the line between homage and crossover, acknowledging other science fiction properties while maintaining separate continuity. Star Trek has become the franchise most willing to embrace crossovers, using its multiverse and time travel mechanics to justify nearly any collaboration, while keeping prime timeline continuity intact. Firefly and Alien. Firefly and Alien potentially share a universe through the Weyland-Yutani Corporation connection. Fans noticed visual similarities in the ships, technology, and corporate structures between Joss Whedon's space western and Ridley Scott's horror franchise. Both universes feature massive corporations controlling space colonization, treating frontier settlers as expendable resources. The Alliance in Firefly operates similarly to Weyland-Yutani, conducting unethical experiments on human subjects, creating the Reavers through the Pax chemical weapon. Whedon wrote Alien Resurrection, the fourth film in that franchise, giving him intimate knowledge of its universe. Fans have pointed out deliberate parallels in how Firefly depicts a future where corporate power supersedes government authority and human life becomes commodified, though Whedon has never confirmed it as an official continuation. The theory suggests Firefly occurs in a distant future where humanity has fled Earth after Weyland-Yutani's experiments with xenomorphs made the original system uninhabitable. The ships in both universes share design aesthetics, prioritizing function over comfort, with industrial interiors and outdated technology maintained through constant repair. Both universes feature crews operating on society's margins, taking illegal jobs to survive while avoiding corporate and government attention. The Blue Hands operatives who hunt River Tam in Firefly mirror the corporate assassins Weyland-Yutani employs to protect their secrets. While never officially confirmed, the thematic and visual connections have led many viewers to treat Firefly as a spiritual successor to the Alien universe's corporate dystopia. Pacific Rim Universe. The Pacific Rim franchise officially connects films, comics, and animated series. Guillermo del Toro's 2013 film depicts humanity building massive mechs called Jaegers to fight interdimensional monsters called kaiju, emerging from a portal in the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Rim Uprising from 2018 continues the story 10 years later, showing humanity has commercialized Jaeger technology and created drone Jaegers for defense. The sequel reveals the kaiju were advanced scouts preparing Earth for colonization by alien precursors who first tried to colonize Earth in the age of the dinosaurs and now want it back. The Netflix animated series Pacific Rim: The Black follows Australian survivors after their continent is overrun by kaiju, depicting a world where humanity lost territory and fights for survival. The franchise maintains strict continuity across all media, with comics filling gaps between films and exploring individual Jaeger pilot backstories. The drift technology, which links two pilots' minds to operate a Jaeger, becomes central to the expanded universe. Comics explore drift compatibility, psychological trauma from sharing consciousness, and the emergence of triple and quadruple pilot configurations for experimental Jaegers. The universe establishes that every kaiju is bioengineered for specific purposes, some designed to destroy cities, others to terraform environments, and some to spread toxic materials that make Earth habitable for precursors. Del Toro created an extensive Bible for the franchise, detailing decades of history from the first kaiju attack in 2013 through multiple wars, technological developments, and humanity's gradual understanding of their enemy. The franchise treats giant robot battles as historical events with geopolitical consequences, exploring how nations cooperate or compete when facing extinction. Tarantino Universe. Quentin Tarantino confirmed all his films exist in a shared universe on two separate levels. The first level is the realer-than-real universe, containing Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. These films depict a semi-realistic world with heightened violence and dialogue. The second level is the movie universe, films that exist as movies within the first universe. Kill Bill and From Dusk Till Dawn are exploitation films that characters in the realistic universe watch, while something like Death Proof still belongs to the heightened but realer-than-real world. Red Apple cigarettes appear in nearly every Tarantino film, a fictional brand connecting the universes. Big Kahuna Burger, the Hawaiian burger chain from Pulp Fiction, appears or is mentioned in Reservoir Dogs, From Dusk Till Dawn, Death Proof, and other films. Tarantino structured Inglourious Bastards to change World War II's outcome, creating an alternate timeline where Hitler dies in a theater fire in 1944. This timeline alteration has been used by Tarantino and fans to help explain why his universe differs from actual history, though it's more an interpretive framework than a strict rule that governs every later film. Characters are related across films. Sergeant Donnie the Bear Jew Donowitz from Bastards is possibly Lee Donowitz's father from True Romance, connecting multiple films through family lineage. Tarantino references his own films constantly, with Kill Bill's Crazy 88 gang wearing outfits that visually echo the gang from Reservoir Dogs, which has led some fans to speculate they're different chapters of the same criminal organization. The shared universe enhances Tarantino's work, rewarding fans who notice connections while functioning independently for casual viewers. His approach influenced Hollywood's embrace of shared universe storytelling, proving audiences enjoy discovering connections between seemingly separate stories. If this was interesting to you, subscribe to stay updated with every upload. Thanks for watching.